Coming to you live for the Bill Full Tough Studio. Boomer Esiason, Greg Giannotti. It's Boomer and Gio on the Fan. Simulcast across the country on CBS Sports Network. And wherever you are in the free Odyssey app. Good Friday morning. A feel-good summer Friday here on the show. Boomer is out. He is with his buddies from Maryland. The Maryland quarterbacks he played with are having a weekend somewhere at an undisclosed location, hanging out together. Bunch of guys doing guy things, doing man stuff. That means that we have Jerry Recco in for Boomer today. Good morning, Jerry. How are you?
Gee, what's up, man? Glory days for Boomer.
Yes, the glory days. Yes, and he's definitely the alpha in that group, even though Frank Reich is there and Stan Gelbaugh is there and Bob Milkovich is there. Boomer definitely, and no disrespect to those guys, but much like here, the alpha male.
He commands a room.
In that situation. Like, this trip does not happen if Boomer Esiason does not want it to happen. If Boomer says, no, that date doesn't work for me, they find another date.
Yep.
If Milkovich can't make it, they still do it. You know what I'm saying?
I hear you.
That's the pecking order of that situation. But I was a little bit jealous yesterday. I was with him for many hours after the show. And he had this great dinner lined up in the Hamptons, and he was getting on a plane and heading down there. And I said, my goodness. You're going to be doing all that, and I'm going to be waking up talking about Kodai Senga's hamstring.
That is very true.
Yes, which we were fulfilling a charity outing situation where there was 8 guys, or 6 rather, and then we were the 2 that filled out the 8 that spent or donate a lot of money to the Boomer Esiason Foundation to go out to Atlantic and play with us. So, you know, I was engaged with them, wasn't really paying attention to what was going on, Met game, and one of the guys was a Mets fan and goes, oh, hey, they won again. But he just looked at the score.
Yep.
And then when I finally, rounds over and I feel like it's okay, it's a beautiful place. I'm not going to be staring at my cell phone the whole time. Of course, you hit the mentions and everybody's blaming Boomer and I for Kodai Senga's injury because we had this guy call up yesterday and he said he didn't want Sean Manaea coming back because the staff's been so good and they're rolling and they're in a good place. And if Manaea comes back and Montas comes back, then all of a sudden things are going to go off the rails. And I believe, and I heard CeeLo said he had the audio, I believe Boomer said these things tend to work themselves out. Somebody's going to pull a hamstring.
Yeah. I mean, it happens. It happens all the time on every team, every season.
And by the way, don't blame us for that. We have just been observing this for so many years that it happens, especially with baseball players and hamstrings. So it's not our fault. It's the sport's fault. But I do think there's something to be said when it's like a lower body injury or soft tissue injury with a pitcher that you know will get better eventually, unless he tore it off the bone, which I don't believe he did. But if you know it's going to get better eventually, it's a long season. Saving some miles on his arm for games that matter late in the season when you're playing as well as you are right now and you've got such depth with 2 guys coming off the IL and the rest of the staff pitching well, you could do a glass half full situation. Not great that he got hurt, but it's not the worst thing in the world when it's a hamstring injury.
No, it is glass half full from the standpoint of you had pitching depth. This is why you've basically signed and got 8 starters for your team. Like I said, you can point to every baseball team in Major League Baseball. They go through this with their rotation every single year on every single team. Now, what sucks about Senga is he dealt with this last year, came back, and for whatever reason, they used him in odd ways in the postseason. In this case, and I know they said it's a strain, which is, I know, some sort of a tear. I'm with you. If this thing's not torn off the bone, and this is, let's just say, 8 weeks. 8 weeks takes you into the middle of August. Work your way back, be ready to pitch start of September, and then you will be full go for the start of the postseason when you pitch through September and you come back. It's not optimal. I'm not saying it's great. You don't want anybody to get hurt. But considering the fact that you do have Sean Manaea on the way back, you've got Montas at some point soon, they'll be fine. This team has figured it out. All we hear about is the pitching lab, the pitching lab, the pitching lab. Well, it keeps working. They keep tossing up zeros. In that game, I know you didn't see it because you were golfing. I'm sure you saw the highlights at this point, though.
Of course.
It got dicey late.
Yep.
It got very dicey late. In the past, that might be a game they wind up losing. Well, you know what? They figured it out. They won another game. They won another series, another sweep. They just continue to figure out ways to win, and this is a setback for sure. But, I'm not going nuts. It sucks. It sucks, but you move on.
Yeah, I did have that same thought of, in years past, the negative mentality and the teams we might have seen in years past. You get a big injury, you blow the game, then all of a sudden the Frank the Tank lava comes out.
Yeah.
With the here we go again,
This
mark
is the
this day down from here on.
That's
But
right.
of course they do win the game, and you've got two guys coming off the IL, and it's gotten to this point. I don't want to say that they're interchangeable because obviously, Kodai Senga has been the best from an ERA standpoint in baseball this entire year, so he's obviously been the best on the Mets staff. But I trust all of these guys at this point. Maybe Tyler McGill a little less than some of the others, but my goodness, every single one of them gets the job done in the way that they need to, especially when the offense is doing what it has been doing for the most part. So he'll come back. This isn't a shoulder thing or an elbow thing or something that is more serious for a pitcher. I guess the only thing that could be a little bit concerning is the fact that Kodai Senga last year was like, I'm just not there yet.
Yeah.
I just don't feel right. And it felt like it extended and extended, even though the team was saying, well, you should be feeling okay. And he was saying, well, I'm not. So I just hope we don't have another situation like that. But this guy, he's going to want to get back out there. He's going to want to pitch. And I'm with you, too. I don't want to go back and rehash everything that happened in the postseason, but I thought that was one of two mistakes that Carlos Mendoza made last year in the postseason. And when Stearns as well, organizational decisions and forcing Senga into starts he probably shouldn't have made because he had really nothing going on all regular season last year.
Yeah, and such a low pitch number that they were going to give him. It made no sense. At least it didn't make any sense to me, and I think we all agree with that. You said something, though, that you kind of glanced over as you said it, but I think you're spot on. When you said just now, I don't want to say that they're all interchangeable. That's fair. The problem is they have been.
Yeah.
When you look at this rotation, last year and this year, they have brought we've talked about Griffin Canning. How many different ways this year? The guy's 6-2. He's got an ERA in the low threes, and he was the worst statistical starting pitcher in Major League Baseball last year.
Mm-hmm.
Clay Holmes was a closer turned starter who I think we expected to do well. I didn't expect him to be this good at this point. He's been great. Tyler McGill continues to be really good. Manaea last year had a career. Now, Manaea was good with the A's, so I don't want to make it seem like that's stunning. He's had a good career, but I don't think anybody expected that much from him last year, and look what he turned out to be, gets the big contract. So while you kind of glanced over it and said you don't want it to be interchangeable or kind of refer to them as such, that's what they've been, and that's a credit to them and a credit to Jeremy Hefner and whatever the hell they're doing over there with their pitching.
Yeah, and I didn't think that Clay Holmes was going to be good because I watched Clay Holmes in a Yankee uniform dominate at times as a closer, and I thought that it was going to translate to being a starter. I thought he was going to be good because the Mets identified him as a starter, went out there aggressively and signed him, and I said, okay, well, they saw something, and I trust them now. Of all the teams that are out there making decisions, I think that specifically the Mets and selecting pitchers over the last 2 years and trusting David Stearns, Jeremy Hefner, and Carlos Mendoza is at the top of that list when it comes to confidence in me.
No question.
It is wild. And I don't know if they could do this every single year, and there's going to be some years where guys that they identify are not going to be as good as what Griffin Canning has been or Severino and Manaea last year and all of that. But so far it's been remarkable, and the depth, too. This just goes to show you, though. It's something we've been talking about for years. Now, the Mets have not won a World Series, didn't even make it to the World Series last year. But, the money spent on starting pitching for these guys that you're either hurt, pitch once every fifth day, have ERAs at the high threes when you're paying them $40 million a year. That's something that Steve Cohen, along with the advisement of David Stearns, learned after the Verlander and Scherzer stuff. We can't pump money into these old-ass starters again. What we're going to do is we're going to bring guys in that we feel like have potential, that are on affordable short-term deals, or we're going to try to get prospects to come up and then have them on their entry-level contracts for all those years with the arbitration and everything else. Or we're going to try to sign someone very young that we think is a superstar in Yamamoto. But, it's clear the guys that they are looking for, and it has worked out like aces so far.
It's like the philosophy is get good starting pitching, make them better, as opposed to pay for what guys have done. Now, it's worked out with Max Fried and the Yankees so far. That guy has been worth every penny because every night he goes out, aside from one start, I think he's got 9 wins, maybe 10 already on the season. It's June 13th. Think about that. That's how good he's been, thrown to a low ERA. That guy has been one of the best in baseball, but it is rare. Garrett Cole has been great since he's been signed. but we can go down the list of starting pitchers that get top dollar that have not been good. The Mets, with what they've done with the pitching, I almost liken it to, and you say, like, how long can it go for, this recipe for success they've had. It's a couple of years now with what they've done. I almost liken it to the Tampa Rays. The Tampa Rays every single year have a weird roster, and they let good players go. And yet and again, I'm not saying they're winning World Series every year, but you know what they are? They're relevant every year, and they are in the mix or in the postseason every single season. Doesn't seem to make sense, but they have figured something out to get the best out of what they've got. And the Mets have done that with the pitching.
Yeah, and I do think, too, that eventually, some of their own guys, some of their drafted guys, some of the prospects coming up through the organization, hopefully being top-of-the-line guys is another thing that I'd love to see. Because in the Mets' history, there's been obviously some top-end ones, some that have lasted longer than others. But, I mean, just think about the Doc Gooden, what he was, what he could have been. The Generation K, Paul Wilson, Isringhausen, Pulsiver that we heard about that went down the tubes. Obviously, the latest one with Harvey and Syndergaard. And you got great moments for them at times, but the idea was that these guys would be Maddox, Smoltz, Steve Avery. That's what you thought it was going to be.
Supposed to be a decade of dominance.
Right, and it never was. So maybe with Stearns, Hefner, and what's going on here, the next couple of guys that come up can actually turn into 10, 15-year starters for an organization. Never seems to have been able to figure that one out.
The one thing you love about this team is, and I know obviously Juan Soto is getting paid a boatload of money, so we put him to the side for a second, and Francisco Lindor came over via trade. I get that. But, and whether they were drafted by the Mets or they made trades and got them in the system early, you've got the likes, when you look at this team, of Alonso, Alvarez, Beatty, Vientos. Now you've got Acuna doing things. Mauricio is now up. Brandon Nimmo. I mean, I'm not saying it's a completely homegrown team, but a lot of these guys have come up through the Mets system, and you're starting to see, you look at what they were last year, middle part of the year through the postseason to what they've done now. This is a full calendar year of really good baseball.
Yeah, and I really think that when you get guys like Nimmo and McNeil hitting at the same time with the other guys that are sort of givens at this point, Lindor, Alonso, and Soto, who's coming around, that's when it's like the lineup just seems so long. Yep. I mean, and McNeil, I mean, we'll see how the season goes. But
I thought his career was over.
Yeah, so did I, at least as a Met.
Yep.
And those are two guys that in New York sports that I was completely done with, that had come back and have been big contributors. One in Mitchell Robinson, who, of course, did it throughout the entire postseason. But I was done with him. I was like, you can't count on this guy. All we do is wait for him to come back. It's the conversations when Mitchell Robinson comes back, they're going to be so much better. But then he never does. Then when he does, he gets hurt again. And he came back healthy, and he was awesome. And now I want to see him signed and come back after what I saw last year. And the other one was Jeff McNeil. I mean, I couldn't believe, even though Iglesias seemed like the magic had run out, like the pixie dust was done towards the end of the postseason last year. I just hated the fact that Jeff McNeil found himself back into that lineup because it didn't feel like
thrust into a playoff run that he wasn't a part of.
Right, and I was like, what are we doing? Now I'm thinking in the offseason he's going to be gone, so why even throw him in here? And he has come back, and over the last, the recent memory here in the last week or a half, 2 weeks has been just phenomenal offensively. If you could get that going consistently, then good luck shutting this lineup down.
Right, well, and that's the whole point. And we talked about this the other day, and that it's amazing that how when you've got so many guys in the lineup, you would think that someone's going to be hot, and you'll never have those days where they're not hitting. And for the most part, that has been true. They have had, obviously, a bad stretch here or there, but to your point about the length of the lineup, there's not many easy outs in that lineup if you're an opposing pitcher, and it starts at the top with what you get from Lindor, and really from game to game, it can be anybody in this lineup that can produce, and they are doing it at a high volume right now, and really on June 13th have looked like the best team in baseball.
Yeah, and so that's sort of the moral of the story this morning. I mean, this is not just
positivity,
right? Faux optimism or anything like that because it's a Feel Good Friday. It's because this team is really, really good. It's a soft tissue lower body injury for Kodai Senga. You've got two guys at the point of their rehab in Minaya and Montas coming back that'll be able to fill a void. And you've got everybody else in the rotation being very, very good. And so, can you ask for anything more when you have your number one starter go down with a hamstring injury? You probably can't.
No, and here would be my question. I'm going to try and do this very quickly on the fly. If I asked you, what do you think they are in their last 162 regular season games going back to last year? Now,
how many have they played this year?
So
now?
they're 45-24 right now.
Okay.
So let's go back to. I'm going to try and find the game by game if I can for you real quick. If I go back to, it's got to be last June. It has to be, essentially, right?
Well, the Grimace Day was yesterday. It was the Grimace anniversary yesterday.
Right. So then I'm gonna go to June. Let's see. If I go to June 12th of last year, so this is a full calendar year. On June 12th of last year, they were 30-37.
Okay.
All right. So that's where it started.
So you could do all this math in your head. We talked about this yesterday when you weren't in here, that you're the best out of all of us doing math in your head.
Yeah, I'm not that great.
No, you're way better than
30
us.
and 37. So they won 89 games, which makes them 59 and 30 and 37 and 73, 36. So they went, if I do this quickly, 45 and 60, that's 104. If I did the math right, I got 104 and 6. That's not right. Well, yeah, I mean, I might be off a game or so. 104 and 60 in their last 164 games.
Yeah,
That's a calendar year of sensational baseball.
Yeah, I mean, that's a division-winning team every single year in Major League Baseball. And by the way, I didn't. Just watching the highlight again.
Yeah,
I was trying not to bring it up.
Pete Alonso.
Yeah, I was trying.
Bad throw. It's a bad throw. Now, in fairness to Pete, I don't know if he's lying to make him feel better. Through a translator,
I know.
They
heard.
said it popped
before that.
Yes,
before that. But
that said, that is in his head.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. I mean, it's just still an issue. But and Pete's going to feel bad about that. Hopefully, it doesn't send him down some mental rabbit hole where he starts being, he's taking that to the plate. But yeah, I mean, hopefully that's the case. And and I don't think that if the base and the way that the base is affected this one as much, but I am with Al, and the word that he used is the right one, the mushy base. Let's bring back the mushy base. I mean, and if we have to be the people that do it and we start this revolution, I mean, there was nothing better when you showed up and played like a Little League game and those bases that they were using were like from 1965 and it was 1995, and they'd throw those things out there and you knew if you stepped on that thing, it was like running on a cloud. And here we are with these way too elevated, hard bases for no reason at all.
Yeah, I don't know why they have them. I know the ones we used our last few years of travel were probably that size, but there was a lot of give in them.
Yeah,
they weren't tight, and I don't know. I don't.
Is it for aesthetics, just because it looks better?
I'm sure there's got to be some science. There has to be. They had to have done something to figure this out. Yeah. What it is, I don't know.
Yeah, but I don't think it necessarily affected it. I mean, I think just the Alonso throw had more to do with it. Who knows? But I still think they're in a very, very good place, and they held on to win yesterday, and they continue to roll. It's Boomer and Gio and Jerry in for Boomer this morning. We'll get CeeLo in here. He's got an update for us.